Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Data Playbook. We have our Week 11 Sunday games to go through now, so we're going to go through those one by one. So let's get into it. Looking into our next matchup, you have Green Bay going to New York to face off against the Giants. We're Green Bay's favorite on the money line with a spread of 7 points and a total line of 41.5. Here's your team averages while we go through the rankings. Here we have Green Bay looking pretty good above average overall, with an allowed scoring rate of 7, allowed passing rate of 10, passing rate of 8, allowed rushing rate of 6. So defensively, they're definitely in the top third. Offensively, a little closer to average, passing rank being the best at 8, but everything else is about average with the rushing and scoring rank. With the Giants, you're a little bit more average to below average. Offensively, you're about average with a passing rank of 17 and a rushing rank of 11. That still may drop without Cam Scadaboo over time, and that scoring rank of 24 is not very good. And then we see that defensively too, where you have an allowed scoring rank of 27, allowed passing rank of 23, second to worst team in the league at stopping the rush, but they do a little better against tight ends. So looking into our quarterbacks, you have Jordan Love, and then you have Jackson Dart, but I have him listed as out right now. So it'd be Jameis Winston, it looks like, except for that I can't bring up his data, which means that maybe he has no data as well. So I'm going to just show Jackson Dart instead, but I may not focus on him very much. So going into it, we have Jordan Love with an average of 16.4 fantasy points per game. Jackson Dart averages 17.8. Jordan Love has 3 interceptions this season, with 2 fumbles lost due to sacks. And you have Jackson Dart with 3 interceptions, 1 fumble lost due to a sack, and 1 rushing fumble. Looking at our averages, you have Jordan Love with 13.2% of the team's total carry share and 14.9% of the team's total rushing yard share. Jackson Dart has 20% of the team's rushing carry share and 25.8% of the team's total rushing yard share. So we'll see what losing this might do to impact the Giants here. And then moving straight into our running backs, you have Josh Jacobs and Tyrone Tracy, with Josh Jacobs averaging 19.6 fantasy points per game and Tracy averaging 6.7. The only turnovers come from Josh Jacobs with 1 rushing fumble. So then there's your averages. And we look at the breakdown with 68.9% of the team's rushing carry share for Green Bay going to Josh Jacobs and 65.6% of the team's rushing yard share going to Josh Jacobs. Over here with Tyrone Tracy, since he's been taking over for Scadaboo, he only has 22.5% of the team's rushing carry share right now and 20.2% of the team's total rushing yard share. As mentioned before, you can see that Cam still holds about 35% of the team's carry and rushing share, but that will dwindle as the season goes on since he's not going to be gaining anymore. And then as mentioned before, we can see the quarterback impact here. Same with Russell Wilson up here, but we don't know what Jameis Winston's going to do yet. Next up with our receiving, you have Romeo Doubs and Wan'Dale Robinson as your number 1 receivers. Doubs averaging 11.7 fantasy points per game, and Wan'Dale Robinson averaging 12.5. There are no turnovers for these receivers, so we'll move right to their averages. And then looking at the breakdown, you have Romeo Doubs with 22.7% of the team's target share, and that comes out to be 21.6% of the team's receiving yard share. For Wan'Dale Robinson, he gets about 27% of the team's total target share, coming out for 28% of the team's total receiving yard share. So both these players have pretty close to even numbers between their target share and their receiving yard share. Next up for our number 2 receivers, you have Matthew Golden, and Darius Slayton is listed as out, so we move down the line to Gunnar Olszewski, I think maybe somehow is how you say his name. But interesting enough, there is no data that I have for him at all. Not even an average of a fantasy point per game. So we'll have to see why this doesn't quite work, but I'll focus instead on Matthew Golden, where Golden gets 6.7 fantasy points per game with no turnovers. There's his season averages. And if we look at his target and receiving share, those are about probably 16-17% on each of them, looking very similar to both. So maybe slightly less on the target share, about 16%. I'd say almost maybe 17-18% on the receiving yard share. Ending up with our tight ends, you have Luke Musgrave, because you still have Tucker Kraft out, and Theo Johnson. Luke Musgrave averaging 3.3 fantasy points per game. Theo Johnson averaging 9.4 with no turnovers. We'll go straight to our averages. And look at Luke Musgrave at 5.3% of the team's target share and about 5.3% of the team's receiving yard share. And here's our numbers from our previous guys. With Matthew Golden get about 11.8% of the team's target share, 12.7% of the team's receiving yard share. Over here with Theo Johnson, you get 17.5% of the team's target share and about 14.6% of the team's receiving yard share. So there's your individual numbers as well as your team numbers. Just looking purely at our numbers, this does seem to favor heavily Green Bay with a much better offense, facing a pretty bad defense, and about an average offense, maybe a little subpar offense, against a pretty good top third defense. So this definitely indicates more towards Green Bay, much more favoring Green Bay. At least that's what the numbers would suggest. And there's your numbers for that game. I hope that you found it useful. And if you did, leave a like and subscribe. And otherwise, comment on what else you want to see in the future. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next matchup.